Hello, today's video is going to be on measuring angles. We're going to go ahead and start with our first diagram. Given the diagram, what is the measure of each of the indicated angles here? This all comes down to, can you properly name an angle, or do you know what angle I'm talking about? So the measurements are all given to us here. I want to know what is the measure of the angle TQS. To find out which angle that's referring to, I follow the letters in order on the diagram. So I'm starting with T. I start with T, then I go to Q, so then I go to Q, and then I end up at S. So for this, start at T, go to Q, and at S. As I trace that pattern TQS, I've created that angle there, and that's telling me that that is referring to the 18-degree angle. If I want angle RQS, I start at R, then go to Q, then I go to S. I go ahead and trace that pattern from R to Q to S. As I trace that pattern, I see that I'm enclosing that 43-degree angle. PQS. This one's getting a little more difficult. So if I'm going from P to Q to S, as I trace that pattern, I notice that I'm looking at this big angle here. This big angle PQS is this entire thing. Now this is something new. This is our angle addition postulate. It's just like our segment addition postulate. To get the angle PQS, I have to add the two smaller angles together. It takes PQR and RQS together, takes those two angles to equal the big angle. So to find the measure of PQS, we do 23 plus 43 to get 66 degrees. Last one here, we want PQT. All right, so even more work we're looking at here. If I'm going from P to Q to T, as I trace that pattern on our diagram, it's talking about this whole angle, this entire thing. It takes all 1, 2, 3 of those small angles together to give me the big one. So we have to do 23 plus 43 plus 18. We can add as many angles as we need to equal the whole. So the big one, PQT, required all 3 small angles together. All right, number 2, we want to solve for the measure of angle RQS. So again, first thing we have to do is make sure that we are identifying and we know which angle the directions are referencing. So if I'm going from R to Q to S, I start at R, I trace to Q, and then I go towards S. So my goal here, what I'm trying to find, is that angle right there. According to my diagram, this is telling me that the whole big angle, these two angles together, is 86. I'm given that this piece is 26. Again, think back to our segment addition and how we found that out. If we know that the big angle is 86 and it takes these two angles together, it's my unknown angle plus the 26-degree angle to give us the 86-degree angle. So to find the unknown, all we have to do is subtract the 26. And we can find that the measure of angle RQS is going to be 60 degrees. So angle addition is going to work the same way as segment addition. You look at the small pieces, what small pieces make up the whole. For our next one, notice the directions solve for x, but do the setup only. So we're not going to go ahead and waste our time going in and solving for x. I just want to see, can you see the relationship between the angles? Do you know how to set this up? And think back again to segment addition. How do the pieces relate to each other? So I want you to go ahead and press the pause button. All you're doing is writing down the equation that you would set up to solve. We're not going to solve it, we're just going to set it up. All right, let's see how you did. as you look at the diagram, we see that this small angle right here is 22. The other small angle is 3x plus 6. It takes these two angles to equal the whole angle, 5x plus 14. So it's 22 plus 3x plus 6. These two things together has the same measure as the big angle, 5x plus 14. All right, moving on. Now we're going to look at an angle bisector. An angle bisector is to an angle the way a midpoint is to a segment. A midpoint divides a segment into two equal segments. An angle bisector cuts an angle into two congruent angles. So we see that segment or ray QR bisects angle PQS. So again, as we trace angle PQS, as we trace that big angle, QR divides it. So it's going to cut that angle into two congruent angles. We're going to use that relationship to find the measure of x. So if these are the same, I can use the exact same expression to represent that missing piece. So it's going to take 2 of those x plus 5s to equal one 84-degree angle. Again, or you know that you can just do the x plus 5 plus x plus 5. Adding it twice is the same as multiplying by 2. We combine our like terms. 2x plus 10 is equal to 84. Move that 10 over, divide by 2, and we find that x is going to be equal to 37. All right, last one, and this is a big one. Here, we are given that angle A is an acute angle. Another vocab word here. An acute angle is a smaller angle. It's between 0 and 90. So our first question is, what are the restrictions on angle A? Well, angle A has to be between 0 and 90. This symbol right here is just a variable for an angle measure. It's just like x or y. It's just how you write an unknown angle. So this right here is representing that unknown angle. Because I know it's acute, I know that it's going to be between 0 and 90. If it was equal to 90, it would be a right angle. We don't want a right angle, so it has to be less than 90. This is representing that our angle is greater than 0 and our angle is less than 90. If it's more than 90, then it becomes obtuse. So those are the restrictions on the angle itself. Now I want to find out what x is. Well, this angle of 3x minus 6, we know has to be greater than 0. If it's not greater than 0, then we've got more problems. So we want to find out what values of x are going to make that greater than 0. Go ahead and go through and we solve for x and we find that x has to be greater than 2. But not only does it have to be that, our angle has to be less than 90. So we find out what values of x are going to make that less than 90. We divide by 3 and x has to be less than 32. So not only does it have to be greater than 2, it has to be less than 32. So our range of values for x has to be between 2 and 32. We always use less than symbols because when we go from here to here, we've flipped it around. So it still says x is greater than 2. We just write our range of values that is between 2 and 32. And this last one is going to be a big question, so another one that you want to make sure that you're paying extra close attention to. All right, we're all done for today.